So, good morning. Okay, cool. So, I always love standing on stage and saying, hello, Manchester, because I do so much traveling around here. I'm never sure exactly where I am. So, apparently tomorrow in Glasgow. Anyone from Glasgow, Scotland? Woo, okay, excellent, okay. So, you might be able to tell from the accent, or you might not be able to tell. I am from the other side of the border, the White Rose area, Yorkshire. Okay. Ooh, tough crowd. Okay, so so without further ado, I've got 50 slides in half an hour. Okay, don't worry, I'm going to bore you to death. Okay, so CompTIA. Anyone heard of CompTIA first of all? Okay, good. So, trick question. Hopefully it's not there. What does CompTIA stand for? Anyone? Ooh, okay. It's the Computing Technology Industry Association. So back in the 1980s, we were kind of approached by all these different organizations. You might have heard them, may not have heard them. Microsoft, Apple, IBM, all these small companies, okay? They said, let's do something for an industry. Let's get together and form an association. So they got together and said, all right, let's look at the things that bother us in today. So it could be a case of different laws, and they did a lot of lobbying. But the best thing they did, I think, for the industry was in the 1990s, they got together and said, what are we going to do about skills? Because if you remember in the 1990s, remember the old Compaq organization? So you had Compaq, Dell, engineers going from one customer to another customer and said, where's the gold standard for IT? What can we make sure that if my engineers are with in your customer site, and they're going to touch essentially what is my equipment, my Dell PC, what are you going to make sure that they have to say it's a gold standard? So they created a whole bunch of standards, which then became our certifications. That's our kind of story there. But that's the old 1990s. Let's talk about what we've been doing last year. So in 2018, we have been very much focusing on cybersecurity, and we've been all around the world talking to different organizations. Some nice household names up there, some maybe not so much so. Give me a woo if you're on that list there. Okay, never mind. Sometimes there is, okay? So basically, we've been talking through different roundtables, surveys, interviews, and saying, right, what exactly is going on in terms of cybersecurity skills? And so, okay, well, it's all well and good to talk about skills, but let's address the problem. The problem is, first of all, the changing threat landscape. Okay? Every day we've got lots of people saying, hey, this is the magic bullet to solve your scenario. Okay? Reality check, folks, and I hate saying this, there is no magic bullet. Unfortunately, if you think, okay, I'm going to tell you in the next 28 minutes how much you've got left over, how to kind of train up your staff to say they can protect us, I'm sorry, I won't be able to tell you that, okay? What I'll be able to tell you is the kind of areas you need to focus upon to ensure that we have the skills to protect us. So first of all, let's talk about the threat landscape. So one of the things we always talk about is the different security attack vectors. What is actually bothering us today? So we're talking about, unfortunately, it comes out to social engineering. So social engineering is going through different various forms. It could be wishing, phishing, another ishing in there is okay. So there are any element where we're actually compromising the user, okay? So has anyone received a phishing email in the last week? Yeah? It's crazy, isn't it? Last night I received 12, okay? I don't know why, I think it was a spear phishing attack, which is quite interesting, okay? But the point is, everyone's trying to get us to click onto something to make something else happens. We're very much focused upon living off the land now, the fileless threats, okay? So at the moment, we've gone through this whole process of deploying great systems. Who's got Windows 10? Anyone Windows 10? Okay, fantastic. I'm social engineering you guys, by the way. Thank you, okay? So basically, sorry, I'd like to walk around, okay? So basically, we have systems out there that have got Windows 10, and what Windows 10 comes by default is PowerShell. And how much havoc can you wreak with a PowerShell? Okay. So when we've got all these wonderful scripts we can use and say, hey, I can take over your machine, make it do different things. Oops, if there's anything, okay? We've got an issue there, okay? The next issue that we're seeing quite a bit is obviously ransomware. We all know about WannaCry. But the mainly thing that happened in 2018 was crypto malware. Did anyone see crypto malware on your systems last year? Some people, yep, some people, okay? And this idea of taking over machines to mine bitcoins or whatever you like was quite an interesting one there. And of course, what we really like to see is elements where organizations have set up all these wonderful controls and we just bypass them to get your machines to do something else. So whether it's a case of ransomware, say, hey, we're going to encrypt your data, please give us money, or actually want to use your processing power to make us money. We're also worried about our good old software development lifecycle. So at the moment, we are very much focused upon business as usual, trying to get that software patch out in time, trying to make that software application out into the industry so we can monetize our systems, okay? So we don't have enough time to look back and say, is the security there? Did we think about it? Can we have more code reviews? Does any software developer houses in the room here? Any? Just one or two there, okay? So having that kind of element of going and looking at the code before it goes out there is critical. And I don't know if you've noticed this. I'm not going to name the vendor, but some vendors are shipping mobile phones out there, Chinese company, okay, that have malware built in. Okay, yes, you can say it's innocuous. Oh, they're showing some ads. Oh, they're just sending your user data to China. Okay, fair enough. But we have to be aware of what kind of systems are out there and making sure when we're making purchasing decisions that we're not creating more issues for us. Credential harvesting. Oh, love credential harvesting, okay? Who uses Have I Been Pawned? Have I Been Pawned? Okay. If you haven't been to Have I Been Pawned, go on there and cry, because I go on there and cry all the time, okay? Unfortunately, and I'm just as bad as everyone else in the room, we recycle passwords. We do, okay? We do recycle passwords, just the key is not to recycle passwords for critical systems. So when you've got things like the dark web, which is saying, hey, let's have lots of little username and passwords, people are going to stuff them into different systems and see what comes out, okay? So we need to be very much aware of credential harvesting, okay? And, actually, I did this with my wife the other week. So anyone does this, it's great for your partner. So what you can do is use a web scraper, scrape a website that your partner logs into and say, it's asking you to log into Facebook. They put the username and password in. It says, error. But the trick is then to redirect them to the real site, then they can log in properly. The great stuff is you get a username and password. My wife's still not talking to me. Okay. And yes, of course you can do it with Amazon and whatever you like. Okay. So, but if you want to get married, stay married, I suppose. That's not a great thing to do. Advanced persistent threat. So this is when we start talking some things of sophistication. This is when you've got things like nation states, groups of gangs, particularly targeting you and staying in your system. That's all start there 114 days before you actually detect there's an intruder in your system. A little story, I'll try to change the names. There's an organization that we work with. This happened a year or so ago. They do a lot of work with the government. It's going to get scary now, okay? And on the day they were going to submit an invoice to the government, they got ransomware on the system. That wasn't the issue. The issue was the ransomware message said, you are going to submit a claim of this much to the government. Give us 30%. So the attackers were in the system, reading emails, knowing what was going on. So they came at the critical point in time when the invoice was going to be submitted and stopping them in the tracks. So what do you think they did to fix that situation? Sorry? No, they didn't pay it, thank God, okay? Never pay a ransomware, because they'll come back again. The key word is backup. They went, delete everything, and start again. So yes, it was painful, but the good thing was they had good backups to get back to speed. And now we've all thought about this. We have a bad day at work and think, now if only I could do something naughty. But I'm not technical enough. Don't need to. If you've got some Bitcoin, go for hacking as a service. And for only, let me just check one, for 1 Bitcoin, you can start your own market, because a bit like your Silk Road, as it were. Crazy, but true. So you don't even have to be technical anymore to actually do bad stuff. So that you've got there, just an idea. Okay. And then distributed denial of service attacks. So we're getting a lot more people, seeing this again. So a lot more people are going, hey, we can't log onto our systems. And you think this was back in the early 2000s where you say, oh no, it's down. Well, it's coming back again. So we need to be aware of what we can do there. And I mentioned social engineering already, whether it is your phishings or you're in person or someone calling you up saying, hello, I'm from Microsoft. Who got that phone call? Hello, I'm from Microsoft. Yeah, it's horrible, isn't it? Okay. My mum almost fell for that one. It's crazy. Good thing she's got Surface RT, which doesn't do anything. Okay, so we're always thinking about the defender's dilemma, okay? Am I spending the money on the right things? Now, do I have enough budget to put in the right controls? Am I making sure the controls are going to protect me in the right way? No, you don't know. Well, anyone know who this is? Eisenhower. And Eisenhower came up with a matrix, the Eisenhower Matrix, which basically says, if it's a priority, we do something. If it's not a priority, we don't do anything. How many times do you go to your CEO of a company and say, I need money to do this? And the answer is no, unfortunately, because it's not priority. You know, if your business is selling cakes, you're not really thinking about security, are you? Okay. An interesting stat from the IDC. So 101 billion was spent will be spent by 2020. 73.7 billion in 2016. So there's going to be a big jump in spending. In the US, it's $28 billion just by the federal government. Crazy. Okay, so we talked about some of the issues there. Let's talk a bit more into problems. So who loves metrics and matrix? No, we don't like maths, do we? Okay, but we do service all the time at CompTIA and asking the industry what is actually going on. Okay, one of the things they talked about was now how you state your current security, and they're saying, yeah, very satisfactory, down to mostly unsatisfactory. So the metrics are saying our security isn't good enough. Where is your security function based? So if your security function is based within the IT team, who watches the watchman? If your IT team wants to get naughty, who's going to stop them? Apparently no one. We also like looking at the metrics of security efforts. So I love CEOs say, right, we are going to do this. How often do you report back to it? In our survey, we found out not much. They don't get reported back at all. And so these are some of the metrics that say, hey, how many times do you update? What are the firewalls, But sometimes a lot of information. There's not enough information to get all the skills enough to understand what does it mean. Yeah, we let so many protocols through the firewall. Well, what does that actually mean? What is that going to actually, is a good thing or a bad thing? What can we do? So the skills aren't there to tell us anything. Okay, so back in the early 2000s, I started my career as a system admin. Okay, system admin in the house go, whoo. Okay, thank you. Just me and you. Okay. So the thing is, what we were very much focused upon there was the good old security onion. The castle idea that we have the data in a secure server, and if it gets broken through, oh, well, there we are. Okay. Well, we can't be the king of the castle anymore. Data doesn't sit in one place. It's everywhere. Now, who's got a mobile phone? Company mobile phone, yeah? Okay. Social engineer, you have it? Okay. So if you've got a company mobile phone, I'll go, oh, okay, I could get that machine or device off you and do some terrible things to you. And we must have all seen this picture on LinkedIn. Shall we break our glass and pull out the network cables? No, because then business won't happen and you're just going to introduce more issues. Okay. And so let's talk a bit more about the hacker's dilemma. So we're talking about the steps taken. Yes, a hacker is there to do something. So we need to think about the steps they're going to take. So for example, we've got here, so we've got trace, map, correlate, create action, Okay, who cares? Okay. What we're really concerned about is the questions, like what areas do we have to think about a hacker is going to take and where can we put a control in to detect that issue? So for example, if they're going to change the registry, do we have an alert when the registry changes? If there is someone trying to do 1 million password attempts for one user account, do we have something in place to record that? And do we have something to actually then tell us to do it? So there's no point doing it now 10 a.m. the next morning when it's already happened at 2 a.m. in the night. Okay. So let's look a bit more further, okay? So there's a gentleman called Edmund Locard. Anyone heard of Edmund Locard? So he has this, yeah, fantastic, okay? He had this idea about, nice little French person. He said, okay, if someone's going to do something bad in terms of forensics, the attacker will bring something in a room and they probably will leave something behind. That's an interesting concept. So there will be some kind of element there that if we've been attacked or we are in the process of being attacked, there's going to be some kind of evidence to link them back. That could be a change in our firewall, could be a case of a protocol that you haven't used for years, that's just something, ooh, that's come through, okay? So you might be looking at that. So in terms of security, we're just going to map our controls to indicators of compromise. Who does this? The blue team, red team testing? No? Tabletop exercises? Yeah, just making sure that you have this idea process through. This gives the idea of we have our nice pen test team who are going to actually check that we have the adequate controls. We have the blue team that's going to make sure that those controls are up to date and always changing to get some different attacks and different elements that are going on. But when you combine them together, we're seeing a lot more organization creating purple teams. So knowing the good stuff and the bad stuff together. So looking at the different tools, the techniques and processes we can use. Okay. So more solutions we can use there. Okay. So in terms of, we've gone through this whole idea that this perimeter doesn't exist anymore. Okay. The issue is, unfortunately, is the way we do business. Okay. Right now we're all here. We're probably sitting upstairs, downstairs, wherever, doing emails, looking at our different systems, okay? Maybe you might be doing some remote server administration, okay? The fact is the perimeter doesn't exist anymore, okay? So you've got to look at, okay, what can we look at? Let's look at identity, okay? So how are we going to protect the endpoint and the person behind using the system? We also have to look at the idea of whitelisting, okay? The whole idea of firewalls and proxies, hey, we'll just block everything and open them up. Does that really work for you? Who's got BYOD going on? BYOD, okay, some people BYOD, okay. Can you really lock down that system that much where a user says, well, I can't really use this device anymore because you've locked it down so much? So we've got to have another shift in our idea how we're going to do that. Okay. Some other controls that we've got here. So isolating our systems, doing a bit of air gapping or web or having secure browsers, so they're all self-contained. Do anyone do that right now, isolating systems? Okay. I think it's going to become a bit more prevalent when you talk about SCADA systems and ICS systems. You know, anyone bringing robots into the organization or look after robots? Yes, some nodding heads there. So you're almost going to isolate them because you don't want them to cause other issues as such. You've got this idea of segmenting your network. We do this already anyways, I hope, for subnetting and whatnot, but you know, you've got to think about some segmenting. But this whole idea of active defense, this is very critical. If you're not doing any kind of monitoring, or if you're not thinking about how to put that monitoring in place, then this is something you need to do, okay? Do you know the fastest growing job role in 2017 was an analyst? A cybersecurity analyst is what everyone wants. The reason being is because they're doing that monitoring, okay? And there's nothing wrong with having an analyst that sits on your side of the organization if you're using a managed service provider. So if you're using insert company that provides a SOC for you, how do you know what they're doing is actually reliable? So you only have someone internally kind of managing them as well. And modern computing. So I mentioned mobile devices, IoT. Who loves IoT? I don't. I hate them, okay? The reason I hate IoT is I actually call them IOET, Internet of Evil Things, okay? The reason why they're so evil is because we have people putting on like full stack Linux on them. Why do they need that? People have outdated, you know, as soon as the system leaves the factory, it's already outdated. Who updates the firmware? I haven't updated firmware for a while. So it's a case of we've got to think about what these IoT devices, or IOET devices actually do. Okay. We've got our good old robots I mentioned there. So, hey, you know, a bit of Terminator mode. Leave that one for you to think about, okay? Okay. Obviously, our servers need to be protected and patched as well, okay? I love it. I had a customer once back in the day, okay? We use Linux. We don't need to update. No, okay. And this other one is, who likes to nose around in hospitals or whatnot? So I went to a hospital just last week. I kid you not, Windows ME. It's crazy. But the problem is, people don't know they've got to replace those systems. And you just have to give that education to them to make sure they do so. We mentioned ICS systems, you know, industrial control systems. Yeah, okay, so I mentioned Windows ME there. Maybe I'm being cruel. It was an old system that they used for some specialized medical issue. But the problem is, what are we going to do with those systems? You need to isolate them and somehow, think about upgrading them or get rid of them. And yeah, if you're not doing anything, your PCs and Macs, there you are. Okay. Who's on the cloud? Anyone on the cloud at the moment? Yes, some nodding heads. And if you're not on the cloud, if you're using Office 365, you're on the cloud. Okay, let's put it that way. Okay. So there's something called Azure Active Directory. If you have Office 365 in your organization, you're on the cloud. Simple as that. So the problem is, it's a different mindset of the cloud. So not so long ago, I was doing some consultancy, and we're doing the check about this. They've gone into the cloud. Yeah, everything's in the cloud. All our data's in the cloud. Okay. We found a cloud password for this organization stuck under the receptionist's keyboard. Yeah, we're in the cloud. Okay, so the problem is you might have the idea of we've got data somewhere else, it's being protected by that third-party organization. Yes, they've got the controls, but it goes back to the human educational system. Well, you still don't stick your passwords underneath your keyboard. Terrible. Okay. We talk about software-defined networking, so then we can bring our networks up together. Multi-cloud architecture, love this idea of this because no doubt you might have, maybe sometime not through a fault of your own, shadow IT might come in where a business unit says, hey, we like this system, it's web-based, as in cloud-based, but they've gone and bought it and they're doing certain things with it, okay? But you might be saying, hey, we're using the Microsoft cloud. Well, who's managing both sides? So you've got to think about that system of putting data in the cloud, off the cloud, and yeah, all the other sides of things. Moving on. Multi-factor authentication. So unfortunately, this is something we don't use enough. Okay, so who uses MFA? Okay, don't worry, I'm not social engineer. It's okay, you can tell me. It's all right. Okay, so some good hands there. That's excellent. So multi-factor authentication. If you're not using it, you need to put it in. The fact is, just having something additional to stop people from, hey, I'm going to log into the system from a new device because they can. Well, let's do a bit of like PIN being sent to their mobile device will be quite useful. A little practical example here. So, okay, so we've got multi-factor authentication and putting it together with two-factor authentication. So that's all well and good. So like something that you have, something you know, something that you are. What's another one that's coming out? Something that you have, something you know, something that you are. Another one, fourth one? Something you know, yep. Somewhere you are. So geolocation. Because the last thing you want is, hey, we stole someone's mobile phone device, we've social engineered a password out of them, and we're logging in from Morocco. Do you have anything to lock them down there? So having multiple factor authentication is quite important. Okay, just moving on. I mentioned this earlier about backups. Now, this is one thing that we take for granted. The problem with backups is people say, yes, we've got a backup. But then it hits the fan, and you try to restore the backup, it's like, it's not working. So going back to the whole idea of how is your backup working, is it restored, etc. Although there's this idea, oh yes, let's back up to the cloud. Had a colleague once which was helping his customer. They backed up to the cloud, and the intruder that got in, they encrypted the backups in the cloud as well. So just be aware of that as well, okay? So what does that mean in terms of skills? So I've put these kind of skills up here, okay? We talk a lot about kind of skills that are needed, and if you're not understanding the modern architecture, you don't understand what penetration actually means, you don't understand the idea of how analytics works to actually give you the right metrics, okay? Now, we are in a scenario where we're going to lose our systems and our jobs, essentially. So looking at this kind of nice little top 10, okay, you might think, actually, skills, I want to talk about soft skills for tech. We still need the hard skills out there. So 70% is tech skills, 30% soft skills. Okay. So CompTIA, I mentioned earlier, we do a lot of stuff in terms of certifications. So we have two different pathways. We've got the Instructure Pathway and the Security Pathway. Actually, I think they're hand in hand. Because how can you protect what you don't know? So in terms of infrastructure, well, let's look at in general. Okay, we focus on tech. Okay, so we're very much focused on getting the hard technical skills there rather than anything else. So in terms of our certification, they're all based on kind of different job roles and the kind of skills that they look into. So if we're talking about, say, security operations, that's looking at cybersecurity analysts. Look at penetration testing, we've got something like that. But let's step a bit forward. Okay, oops, okay. What we are looking at is pathways. When was the last time, okay, it's a bit hard to ask, but you know, who's done some training in the last month? Been a while, okay? We always talk about in technology, you've got to continuously update yourself. So in terms of, if you're not looking at kind of skills in, say, Linux or cloud, or kind of looking at the modular upskilling yourself, okay, so what's new in this? Whether it's formal, informal learning, you need to ensure that you keep yourself up to date. We say, okay, once you've done the learning, where's the marker? Because let's face it, you know, who's been on a 5-day training course with a big training provider and enjoyed the lunch? I know I did. Yeah? Because that's the format there. How was the lunch? 10 out of 10. What did you have to do to retain that training? Well, a pulse, because I was alive at the end of the course. Okay, that's not good enough. You've got to have something to actually show that you retain the skills, that you have the knowledge and skills to then apply them in a working situation. So having a pathways to build up your skills at the end of a training course would be absolutely brilliant. For cyber, this is our kind of pathway there. So we actually say, okay, again, going from looking at the service desk, network administration, security admin, then moving on to penetration testing and cybersecurity defense, finally looking at security architecture. Any CSSPs in the house? CISPs? Yeah, a few hands there, okay? When you look at CSSP, it's very much governance and policies. It's been a while since you've done your CSSP. Look at CAS, because that actually helps you to think about the technical side of it. But we're looking at upskilling and reskilling. So if you're looking at the idea where we have, I also do some work for the NCSC, and we do a program called Cyber First, which is about getting new talent into cybersecurity. So focusing from 12 to 24-year-olds. Can we as an industry afford to wait for the 24-year-olds to get into a job role? Well, the problem is, a nice little stat for you, come 2022, we're going to have 100,000 unfilled cyber job roles in the UK. The kids aren't ready yet. Who are ready are people in this room, people that you might know, your neighbors, people working on the service desk, thinking, right, you got the bare bones. You're working as a technical person, maybe in, say, digital, maybe on a service desk, maybe as a server admin. What can we use to upskill you? So what I'm doing right now is running the Cyber Ready program, where we're taking people who have just done things like a first-line support type job roles. I've got someone who's done digital marketing. I've got plumber and builder on this course, actually. So what we're doing over a 6-month period is upskilling them in cybersecurity so they can then go and work as SOC analysts. So think about non-traditional pathways of getting people into job roles. So predictions. So yeah, I've talked about attack vectors and different where they come from, different tools and technologies that people need to know. So this is what I'm predicting. I told you about Internet of Evil things. I can't get stuff out my fridge until I pay a Bitcoin. Okay. I don't know if you noticed over the January sales, a lot of, I'm not going to name the manufacturer, they sold their IoT-enabled washing machines at half price. I wouldn't touch them. There must be something wrong with them, okay? Firmware. I think that's going to be the next piece where people are going to be attacking the firmware rather than actually going from layer 1 rather than layer 7 to kind of lock down machines. Critical national infrastructure. I think this is going to be a very big element in 2019 and especially into 2020. As we get more power plants online, as we get more systems online which control our critical national infrastructure, we're getting nation states trying to take them down. Scary. Okay. So that's me. Okay. Hope you enjoyed that. The main thing I would say for this session is understand what you have. Look at the the threat landscape. Look at what skills you have in-house. See how you can upskill your staff and especially yourself. Okay? And without that, thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, don't go yet. Oh.
We've got about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
And would you be happy to take
absolutely. Questions, definitely.
Super. Can we take questions from the floor?
My favorite color is blue. Any questions, folks? Okay. Are there any CompTIA certified professionals in the room? Yay! Woo. A question? Yes, go on.
One of my starts of life was doing the A+M master, which is some of my career. But
So the question was, how can we sell certification and training to our CEOs and executive management? I would say it's a case of demonstrating the value. So going back to the whole idea of metrics. Let me just go back. Okay. Sorry, folks, just slowest machine in the world. So kind of these kind of metrics of device being updated, whatnot. This actually, I'm more happy to share these slides with you folks, okay? This actually shows, right, these are the things that we need to do to ensure we have a resilient infrastructure. Well, we can then map these to the different skills needed and then map them further to our certification. So this way, you have a case of, right, this is what we need to do to secure ourselves. These are the skills, these are training and certifications that lead to them. Does that help to answer the question? Okay. Okay. I guess the question is money, and the fact is, if you say the cost of an average breach, the cost of not skilling, we've all seen that little cartoon LinkedIn, like what happens if we train them? Well, what happens if we don't, as it were? So that kind of scenario as well. Okay. So we're getting there. I think it's a case of having that good mindset and getting people like yourselves being evangelists as yourselves to go and say, hey, this is what I'm going to be doing. Okay. Any other questions? No. I guess that's it, really. Okay. Okay.